I threw this in here. I saw you had this like on the idea list, and it's like a pain point. It's like every quarter, the Google reps, depending on your account size, like shifts. So if you have like a big account, it may not shift as often. Like it may not shift on a quarterly basis, but they do shift probably within a cadence. Like I haven't had a Google rep for more than a year in a long time. But you have like these kind of two tiers, at least the accounts I manage right now are broken up into these tiers and based on spend. And the higher you spend, typically the higher quality of the rep you get. And for the main tier, I actually have different takes for like high spending tiers and low spending tiers. In terms of like a small account, you kind of get these reps that are not as experienced and they are reading off a script of like the latest things that Google has released. And they make recommendations, in my opinion, that aren't always helpful to the account performance. And they don't have context because they've just gotten the account for like the last week, right? And then they're trying to recommend to you these changes in your account that usually, in my experience, have hurt performance. So anyone that, if you're in this tier, which is every quarter you're getting new reps, I would be taking the advice with caution. And I think most managers know this, but if you're a new manager or you're a new freelancer, you're just starting off, like I would not change anything on the call if you can help it. I would always double check and do your own research off call and then implement some recommendations. I do think that they're on these calls, typically 10 or 15% of the info on the call actually might be helpful to you. They actually might show you something in the ads platform that you didn't realize was there, or it's like a new feature, and in your day-to-day work, you just haven't found it yet. So I do think they offer value, but I would be careful in making any actions without doing your own research. So that's kind of like the base level tier. In terms of like kind of like the pro level tier where you're spending a good amount of money, usually these reps have more experience. They have been with the brand a bit longer. They have more support. I would say this is just a better place to be. And I would use them as partners, right? So a lot of times you may be the only one in the account on a day-to-day basis. I would recommend using your Google rep as a second pair of eyes. Look at them as a team. I have been on teams before where there's a team that potentially was burned by their Google reps, and then it turns into like this us versus them mentality, which I think happens, like I mentioned, on like that lower tier spend reps that are not as experienced, they're just reading off of a script. I think you have to be very cautious with them. But I try to use in the pro quote unquote tier, like really use them as partners and have them pull data for you. They have data teams behind them. Have them pull data for you, get trends, make sure that you're all ready to go for your peak seasons, get in betas. They can get you into betas for testing. And if there's anything that comes up, sometimes you mentioned earlier on the call, ads get disapproved. You may need some landing page insights, like use them as an extension of your marketing team. And I think it can work well. I would also caution on anything they recommend because their incentive is to get us to spend more, but usually they understand the best way to do that is to make us grow profitably. So I try to kind of keep this relationship with the reps that are on kind of that higher level of spend, like fluid. And I use them a lot. Like I bring them in and I lean on them a lot, just so that they also are like in the business with me. And I would just be cautious of those lower tier reps that might be mean to say, but just that may have lower experience when you've already been on an account for like more than a year. So
sure. And plus, when you have higher tier, higher spend, and what I mean by higher spend, I'd probably say like 500,000 a month and up, maybe. But I've worked on accounts that have like enterprise level, which is like a few million or more a month, and they have teams. Like they'll have usually one head rep. They'll have somebody on maybe analytics. They'll have a team of at least 3, if not more, for these really large accounts, and they are invested. Like you said, they're partners. So, and they want you to be successful because like the whole 80-20 thing. I mean, like you're in there 20%, driving 80% of the Google revenue. So they really want you to be successful because successful means you're going to be able to spend more. And I think like in general, all Google reps want that. But I think you hit a lot of the points on the nail. It's like they are incentivized to, one, have you spend more, and two is to roll out and test and get people more more involved and to adopt the latest products. For example, Performance Max. Like they want you to adopt it. They want to test it. They want to get as many people involved as or as many accounts involved as possible. Yeah, and you know it's kind of funny because like I presented or somebody presented, I forgot. Somehow it came up in a Slack group, and there was a bunch of like campaign managers, and they were like talking about Google reps, and like it had like literally the most like threads, like comments on it out of like anything that was on this like Slack group in this Google Ads channel. And yeah, some of the things that people were saying, they were just like not a fan. Like I definitely lean on the side of you where it's like you have to be your business. You're the only advocate for your business. Like Google is not an advocate for the business. Like they don't understand it the way that you do. And maybe at the higher levels, they do a little bit because they've been around it longer. But like, but yeah, Google doesn't really understand it as much as you do. But like these managers were like bashing it. It was kind of funny. And I think like, yeah, they might be right, but I don't know, from your experience and my experience, I think we worked across so many different accounts and different sized accounts that like we have a more well-rounded outlook on it. But like I would say my pros is like there's definitely a pro to having a Google manager where it's like expediting policy issues. Like I always run into policy issues just with the nature of the accounts that I run in and like the health space. And it is a huge help to have somebody on the inside like pushing the policy team or jumping in a meeting with the policy team to get things approved. I think like if you're a sole manager and you're managing an account all by yourself, like having somebody just like a second eyes to QA some of the data, like some of your accounts. And so like you said, like there's some features that you just may not have come across. You might not even have thought about. And like that little bit of recommendation, like take it or leave it, but like it could help. So as long as you're an advocate for your business, I think helping again, like the policy issues, like to schedule and fix issues like across other Google products, like with the kind of the shopping team, like the Google Merchant Center. Like if you're having an issue there, like you're able to kind of work with that team and they're kind of expedite that, setting up that meeting, or like GTM, and like they'll expedite to make sure your conversions are all tracked and get on the team with them. And it's usually good for the most part to have that second set of eyes and that resource. And it's for free, technically. I mean, technically you're paying for it and you're in the media spend, but in terms of the help, it's I always accept it in terms of that. So other things is like launching betas, presenting industry trends, like you said, and overall just another set of eyeballs. The cons, I would say, is like the incentivize to spend more and to adopt products that may or may not be proven yet. So what we find a lot is like, and this was like kind of where they were like in that particular group, and I have another like article that they were like talking about stuff like this too, where it's the SEOroundatble. It's a really good blog and resources for anybody that's interested in kind of SEM marketing. But this one, it was titled like 70% of search marketers say Google ads cost per clicks are going up. And this was launched in February 23rd, 2022. And the funny thing is like the second comment on it was like, unfortunately, this is only getting worse, especially with Performance Max. The problem is that Google wants a substantial year-on-year revenue increase, but there is only a finite amount of online transactions. Remember, Google doesn't create sales. It just effectively allocates them to different merchants. Everyone is fighting for the same customers, so Google can only achieve increased revenue by taking more from each merchant. And Google achieves this by introducing a new automated bidding feature every few years. Example, enhanced bidding, smart shopping, now performance max. The early adopters of each see good but short-term superficial ROAS increase with increased CPCs because they are stealing sales from the merchants not yet on the latest auto bidding. Google then uses these superficial ROAS statistics and incentivize or send, I can't even speak today, has incentive for its reps to convince all merchants to move to these latest auto bidding. But as soon as most merchants have moved to it, they're all achieving the same sales they were before, as everything is shared out equally once again, just at a higher CPC. But then the cycle repeats. Google comes up with a new automated bidding feature. It allows them to push up CPCs. I think like that's the story with all digital media.
Yeah.
It's getting more expensive, but I thought it was a really interesting perspective how he put it. And
have you read Andrew Chen's blog post, The Law of Shitty Click-Throughs?
No, I have not.
Okay, I'll send this to you. This is a great article. It is kind of like, I think CPCs go up over time, and that's Andrew Chen's point. And he has this whole article on this, like just more people get into these auctions. Like a banner ad when they first launched had like a 78% click-through rate. Now a banner ad has like a less than 1% click-through rate. Like it's like 0.001 actually. It's like crazy. And the same thing has happened with email. Email open rates used to be like 70, 80%. Now they're down in like 20, 30%. So over time, all marketing channels degrade. And he makes an argument that a way to counter that is to get into like these new products. Like say Facebook lately has been post iOS 14 really struggling, but TikTok has been emerging, right? So you get this like CPC arbitrage where some platforms decline, but then you can go and you can jump into TikTok where CPCs are super cheap right now because people aren't there. I think that also is like what happens with these Google products. Like it makes complete sense. Like people that hop on Performance Max first are going to get the best CPCs and the best ROAS. And it's an interesting point because they do flaunt like people that adopt this have 60% higher ROAS. And it's like, how much is that?
Enhanced conversions, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. How much is that? Is a product getting better? Some percentage, I assume, as just the algorithms get smarter, the products get better. But how much of it actually is just a CPC arbitrage opportunity where they just have unlocked more inventory and you're just kind of getting in early, right? It's interesting.
It's the name of the game, though. That's why we got to work smarter and just be an advocate for your business. I think like that's the biggest thing. Like know your profit margins, know what levers you need for your business. Like don't give it all to Google. Don't run one massive campaign and just be like, oh, you know what, it's consolidation and call it a day and not have any levers that make sense to your particular business. But you know what I think one other big question is that I hear a lot around Google reps is like, how do I get one? Like with a lot of these small accounts that are looking to grow. So I just wrote down like a couple tips and pretty simple, but it's like, you're always going to hear, like if you reach out to Google Support, that they're automatically assigned by the system. And maybe they are, but I think it's a bunch of BS. And personally, I think like once you have a Google rep, or if you had a few Google reps in the past, like make sure that you keep their contact information, either email or a friend of mine on LinkedIn, and reach out to them. If you have a new account, you're a manager, you're a new brand, you just launched, and you're like, yeah, I'm looking to grow. And make sure you say you're looking to grow, because that's what they want to hear. They want to hear that they can help you spend more. Reach out to them. Like just kind of send them an email, send them a few emails or LinkedIn DM or something like that, and you'll be able to get it. But just be an advocate for your brand. I think that sums it up.